I remember that we started talking about adding transgender to the protections under the Broward County Human Rights Ordinance. And at that time, in 2003, say Diane Arnold was a transgender woman who had been a Dolphin member for many years and very active, a really great gal. So she approached the Broward County Human Rights Board regarding adding transgender, and at that time, the timing issue with considering the opposition bringing a petition referendum is key, because if you say you want to do something and it's controversial and the commissioners agree and they amend the ordinance to include transgender or anything else that you want to do, then the people who are going to oppose it have a certain amount of time to collect those signatures, the 6 months that we talked about. So if you're going to do something controversial and you know there might be a petition referendum involved afterwards, you're going to want to say, okay, well, how close are we to an election? Because what happens is, say they collect the petitions, they have 6 months, they collect the petitions, and then there's an election in November. Okay, because what happens is once they get the petitions certified that they're valid, then that item has to go on the next general election, whether it be a local election, a national election, whatever election is next up. So you don't want to have the opportunity for those petitions to be gathered right before, say, a presidential election in 2004. So that wasn't a good time in 2003. So we let that go at that time. What happened subsequently in 2007, at this point, I had really stepped away from the Dolphins, and I was just running my business and having my life. I think wasn't doing anything of particular note at all. I was out of the loop, and actually my stepfather was in the hospital dying, and somebody told me that there was a plan afoot to encourage the Broward County Commission to amend the Human Rights Ordinance to include transgender. So I called up Richard Giorgio, my consultant friend that had worked on the campaign with us in 1995 and 2001, and he said, oh, that's really, if it's going to happen this summer, it's very poor timing, because that would give them exactly the time that they need to collect the signatures to get on the ballot in 2008. And so I had a meeting with Ken Keachel, was a newly elected county commissioner. So Ken had been the president of the Dolphins, and Amy had been his vice president, and he was elected, and she became the president. So it was Amy and Mike Albetta and Ken, and I don't remember who else I talked to, but I had appointments with all these people, and I said, look, it's really, this summer isn't a good time. Why don't you just wait until January, February, March of 2008, because then they won't have the 6 months necessary to collect the petitions before the 2008 elections. Well, they said, you're wrong. It doesn't matter. There won't be an opposition. Nobody's going to collect signatures. You're living in the past, Robin. You haven't been around. People don't hate gay people anymore. So just don't worry your pretty little head about it and go back over there wherever you were, what you were doing. I mean, nobody actually said that, but that was the feeling. They basically just poo-pooed me. They really didn't. They didn't understand the gravity of the situation. They didn't understand the mechanics of the situation, because none of these people had been involved in the 2001 referendum battle. They didn't understand at all. And then if I made them understand, if I got their attention long enough to explain how it worked, then they just said, no, it's not going to happen, because there's not that kind of anti-gay fervor out there to do this. It's just not going to happen. So I had to meet with this was something pretty much I did on my own with Richard as my mentor and you know, crying post and co-conspirator. And I met with all the county commissioners, and they were, you know, they listened because they were some new faces by this time, but you know, but they were respectful and they listened. And you know, Ken was nice, but he said, you know, I got to do this. We got to do it because, you know, I mean, subtext, I think, was like a promise, you know, a early promise to the Dolphin, you know, the Mike Albedas, and you know that he would because he had put it forward. That's how I heard about it. I just remembered the way I heard about it was that he had already presented it at the county. It hadn't been voted on yet, but it had been brought forward. So you know, he said, no, we got to do it. So Richard and I took out ads in the hot spots, and I don't remember. It was the Express or the SFGN. I'm not sure which one. Maybe the Express. Put out public notices announcing, you know, that you should be aware that this is happening, that our Broward County Human Rights Ordinance is being risked unnecessarily. Come to the meeting at the community center to hear about it. And I rented the community center for the evening, and Richard and I prepared our presentation. Actually, I went to the Broward County Human Rights Board first because of course they had to put a delegation request into the commission in order to bring this. So I went to the board to explain what was, you know, why it would be better to wait 5 months. That's all I was asking them, to wait 5 months. And the president of the board at that time was Adrienne Reese, and she was, you know, involved with that Dolphin crew. And she prevented us from speaking. I went with Richard, and we were on the agenda, and I don't remember, she pulled some procedural bullshit that she didn't let us speak to the board. Because had we been able to speak to the board, they would have listened. Because at the position that was being taken by the advocates of immediate enactment of this ordinance change was unreasonable. It was really unreasonable. But in any event, so we had this meeting at the GLCC. About 100 people showed up, and it was going pretty well, just explaining, you know, our situation. There had been some press already on the subject with the gay press, and then I guess the straight press picked it up from the gay press. So there were reporters there. The political writer from the Sentinel was there, Beth Reinhardt, at that time. And I don't know, maybe about a half hour into the meeting, a group of about 10 people came in. I want to say Dean Trantalis, Mike Albeda, Stratton Politzer from Equality Florida, Tobias Packer from Equality Florida, Amy Shoesmith, president of the Dolphins, Mike Albeda, the vice president of the Dolphins, and Tom Runyon, and a couple other people. And they had just come from the city of Oakland Park, I think that they had put on their agenda at the city of Oakland Park to add a human rights ordinance for protections for Oakland Park. And they had just come from there. And they came into that meeting, Tiffany Ariagas, I think she's a drag performer. Anyway, screaming like crazy people. I mean, really outrageous. I asked them to, you know, take a seat, and that, you know, everybody would have an opportunity to speak. They wouldn't take a seat. They wanted the microphone. It was really like unbelievable. I mean, you would have to read the press reports of it to see that I'm not exaggerating. I couldn't believe it because I was so used to being popular. Everybody loved me. Really, I mean, in all the years I was doing all this stuff, I only got one hate letter. And it was just a stupid card that said, Jesus loves everybody, and he opens it up, but you're an asshole, something like that. But I was like so like taken aback, and plus these people that were screaming at me, hell, I mean, yes, I had in the past, Mike Albetta had been on the wrong side of the gender parity, but then I served as his vice president for like 3 years or more maybe. I couldn't believe it. It was like unbelievable. It really was unbelievable. You know, Dean, don't you know who I am? I'm like, Dean, hello, Robin. This is Robin. Yeah, I know who you are. Anyway, so it was really bad, and Tiffany Arriagas was like 6 feet tall in her pumps, grabbed the microphone from me and started making some civil rights speech, and we were just said, okay. And Tom Runyon said, we want the hall, and I said, okay, you can have it, but I got to sign it over to you because I'm responsible for it. So I signed it over to them, and we left. Well, there was some terrible press about that, but the good thing was all the press explained I only wanted 5 months wait. It wasn't, justice denied is justice defeat. I don't know what that saying is, but the idea was that this is the right thing to do, and if you try to prevent it from happening now, then it's just as though you are the worst enemy in the world of the trans people, and you're just a despicable human being. It was really traumatic. So that was a horrible experience for me. I mean, even after the meeting and the press, and then now we were at the point where everything is online, and all the people are like giving their comments, and 90% of them, I don't even know who they were, or who they didn't even know who I was or what my history was, and were just, seeing me as the enemy, and this transphobe, and all these horrible things were being said. So it was awful, and we're talking about maybe this all came down in like July, at the latest August of 2007. And I had been asking for a 5-month hiatus till we would get past that time so we could get into the 2008 election cycle without having a repeal referendum. So, long story short, yes, the Broward County Commission voted and amended the Human Rights Ordinance to include protections for transgender, but they did it in February of 2008, which is what I had been asking all along. And when it happened, I went and I testified in favor of it. So it was an ugly personal experience for me, but I would ultimately, and moreover, and not only did they end up doing what I asked, nobody ever called me up and said, hey, Robin, we decided you're right, we're going to do it your way. That didn't happen, but that's what they did. Unfortunately, I was also vindicated in my position with regard to the level of anti-gay sentiment in the greater community, because you will remember that 2008 was when Amendment 2 was passed, which codified in the Florida State Constitution that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. So apparently it wasn't so damn gay friendly as everybody thought in 2008.